Hi, I'm Eliza Spindel. I'm a curatorial assistant at Kettle's Yard, and this video is part of the Museum Remix Unheard project. Today I'm going to talk about a painting by the British artist Ben Nicholson, titled 1924 Bertha No. 2. As its title suggests, the work was painted in 1924, fairly early in Nicholson's career. At Kettle's Yard we have quite a few works by Nicholson. Jim Eade, the creator of Kettle's Yard, was a close friend and patron, and acquired lots of Nicholson's work for his collection. This particular work is displayed very prominently at Kettle's Yard in a group of other works by Ben Nicholson. The painting shows the head and bare shoulders of a young woman, Bertha. There's something very bold and direct about the way she's been depicted. Nicholson has painted her larger than life size and cropped it so that her head fills the canvas, making it feel very immediate and close up. He seems to have paid particular attention to her eyes, which gaze firmly out beyond the viewer. There's very little decoration or detail, but instead an emphasis on strong sculptural forms and planes that give her a sense of solidity and monumentality. Nicholson was inspired by the geometric, abstracted style of cubist artists like Picasso. At the same time, the pale, creamy colours and simple composition reflect Nicholson's interest at the time in early Italian Renaissance painting, particularly fresco painting, a technique of painting onto wet plaster. The reason I've chosen this artwork is because, although we know lots about the artist that painted it, the sitter remains something of an unsolved mystery. All we really have is her name, Bertha, which Nicholson's written on the back of the canvas. The fact that he called it Bertha No. 2 suggests that there was a Bertha No. 1, but this has never been identified, or perhaps no longer exists. Without an identity for the sitter, we're left to guess who she might have been and what her relationship was to Nicholson. The fact that he names her indicates at the very least that this is a portrait of a real person and not an imaginary or generic figure. But this doesn't seem to be a portrait in the traditional sense, where the artist's primary purpose is to record the sitter's likeness or character. For starters, Nicholson would probably have used her full name if this were the case. Also, the lack of surrounding detail and the fact that she's nude would be unusual in this context. Nicholson seems more interested in exploring colour and form than capturing a recognisable likeness. Instead, we might guess that Bertha was someone Nicholson knew personally and was able to paint in this more informal context. Nicholson was part of a large artistic family and friends with lots of well-known artists and creatives, but despite this, nobody's been able to figure out who Bertha might be. Another possibility is that Bertha was an artist's model hired to pose for Nicholson. Female artist models have often been overlooked in the history of art, seen as passive subjects or muses despite playing a really crucial role. Often, models were artists in their own right, and used modelling as a way of accessing training and connections at a time when these opportunities were restricted and expensive, especially for women. This mysterious painting leaves lots of room for imagination. Who was Bertha, and how did she know Ben? Where were they when this was painted, and what did they talk about? What did Bertha make of the way Nicholson painted her, and what happened to Bertha No. 1? This lack of information isn't unique to this painting either. How often do we find ourselves looking at a painting of a woman and know more about the male artist behind it than the woman depicted? Why is this? And how can museums and historians give voice to women like Bertha? That's up to you. Happy remixing.